Why was a flu vaccine developed? In 1918, there was a flu pandemic, H1N1. During World War I, due to the overcrowding among the troops globally, the flu virus spread rapidly, resulting in 50 million deaths worldwide. Initially, it was thought that the flu was caused by bacterium. However, in 1933 to 1936, influenza A and B were isolated by scientists. Then, in 1936, it was discovered that the virus could be grown in embroimented hen's eggs. After that, in 1940s, the US Army supported the creation of a vaccine because of the many deaths and illnesses suffered by the troops in World War I. With the advancements of technology, we have been able to create vaccination for the flu virus. When the vaccination was not in place, there was a significant loss in society's efficiency. Further, according to the website health.com, there could be a secondary infection such as pneumonia, resulting in additional consequences. Not only that, but on the first day of showing symptoms, the flu is at the peak of its infectiousness, and you could easily spread it to your family, friends, coworker, and others. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or known as CDC, during the 1918 pandemic, there was the Spanish flu. When there was no immunization, there were lockdowns, including in Chicago and other American cities, which affected people's social lives. Theaters, movies, houses, churches, night schools were closed, and other public gatherings were prohibited. It reduced the quality of life in society because some people were not allowed to go to their work or schools. Since the flu virus was discovered, it had disrupted and harmed society. Consequently, scientists have been challenged to create effective vaccines and had to continually create altered versions of the flu vaccine twice a year. As the flu easily and frequently mutates, predictions needed to be made about which strains of the flu will be circulating at the period of time. Now, let's talk about the benefits of having a vaccination. Not only does the flu vaccine mitigate the risk of catching influenza, but it can also reduce the severity of symptoms from the virus. When people get vaccinated, it can greatly help to protect most vulnerable people. When majority of the people are vaccinated, this is also known as the herd immunity, and it can also protect vulnerable people with weakened immunity, such as baby younger than 6 months, elderly over 65, people with chronic disease such as diabetes, lung disease, cancer patients, and etc. Also, pregnant women are at very high risk as well. There are people who cannot take the vaccines because they might be allergic to eggs, or they have a history of Guillain-Barré syndrome because they might suffer adverse reactions from the vaccine. Next, I'll be talking about the downsides and the risk factors of the vaccine. Firstly, according to the CDC, the common side effects are mild, such as soreness on the injection site, headache, fever, nausea, muscle aches, and occasionally fainting. However, in minority of cases, such as if someone has an unknown or developing egg allergy, there have been cases of severe allergic reactions, such as difficult breathing, wheezing, swelling around the face, hives, and etc. When there are severe symptoms caused by flu immunization, the reaction shows up within a few hours after the procedure. As a result, the vaccine was stopped immediately. When there are not enough people taking the vaccine, herd immunity is not achieved and the virus spreads rapidly with serious consequences for the vulnerable. Recently and unfortunately, many people believe false information spread on social media about dangers of vaccinations. And experts believe that for a flu vaccine to be effective, about 80% of the population need to be immunized.
What is your idea of the relationship between environmental factors and influenza? Lots of people might think that is not related to each other, or even if it is related, they might think that it is not influential in our daily life. However, the relationship between influenza and environmental factors is very crucial, and we can actually find those factors in our daily life. There are several environmental factors that affect the influenza itself and also its transmission. Air pollution. Air pollution includes chemicals and particles that can lead humans to death. Particle pollution, which is also called particulate matter, is a mixture of small soil and liquid droplets that get released into the air. These small particles with a diameter of 2.5 micrometers or less, particulate matter 2.5, and particulate matter with 10 micrometers or less, particulate matter 10. Apparently, particulate matter compromises our immune system, and this causes our bodies to be more vulnerable, especially with respiratory diseases. According to the World Health Organization, the symptoms of headaches, runny nose, cough, and muscle pain can make people confuse it with a heavy cold. Yet, seasonal influenza kills up to 65 million people every year. This is the reason why influenza vaccinations are essential, especially for kids and vulnerable people. Temperature. Temperature is very important when it comes to transmission of viruses. In a nutshell, the lower the temperature, or the higher the transmission. The virus is very active at 5 degrees Celsius, but then at 30 degrees Celsius, the virus transmission rarely takes place. Now, at a moderate temperature, like the room temperature, another factor kicks in. Humidity. Humidity plays an important role in terms of virus transmission. It affects the virus's stability, but more importantly, increases respiratory droplet size. Influenza virus transmission is strongly modulated by temperature and humidity. Humidity increases respiratory droplet size. This means that with much humidity, the droplets get bigger. With less humidity, the droplets get smaller. When the droplets are too heavy, they just settle down and lose the opportunity to be transmitted. But when the droplets are lighter, they tend to fly around and increase the possibility of being inhaled by others. In high humidity conditions, blood does not get rid of excessive heat, and it may lead to hyperthermia. Based on that information, we can know that environmental factors are a crucial part. Besides those, can also be local climate, sanitation, facilities, and etc.
Flu can impact the economy. The problem is related to GDP. Hundreds of millions of workers have lost their jobs, and global GDP had expected to fall more sharply than ever since the Great Depression. When there is no resilience effect, the outbreak of influenza can result in a loss of $25.4 billion in US GDP, but vaccinations can reduce the loss of $19.4 billion. Also, the behavior and resilience factors, a pandemic flu outbreak could cost $45.3 billion with a vaccination and $34.4 billion in GDP loss if vaccinated. The result of highlight many viable items that government, policymaker, and public health officer can use to reduce potential economic losses from outbreaks. Children and adults do not want to go to theaters and shops because they are reluctant to go outside and they think they can get infected to the flu. Therefore, the shop owners couldn't benefit financially. In 2003, most governments closed down bars, shopping malls, and sports facilities to reduce contact between people. And 80% of hotel rooms were empty. According to Bruce Lee, a professional of the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center in the US, flu vaccine no longer requires hospitalization or killing many people because of the flu virus. So how to solve this problem is the flu vaccine. Flu vaccine is to prevent flu from spreading out, and also it reduces the risk of disease by 40 to 60%. So the workers can work again and GDP can get better. You need to have the flu vaccine every year and flu season between October and May.